What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Once again, it has been quite a while since I've made a top 10 video like this. But here we are. So this time, you could read the title. I'm looking at what I'm calling my top 10 overlooked guitar solos. Now I'm using the word overlooked for two reasons. Number one, the word underrated is kind of overused if you ask me. It's gonna have a similar idea to it-ish, but I didn't want to use the word underrated, because it's used too much. So overlooked sounded like a better replacement for it. Also, I mean, a lot of these would easily be overlooked when considering, like, you know, amidst the mass pantheon of guitar solos out there. Like, if somebody were to try and make a top 10 best guitar solos of all time list, I can almost guarantee you, like, none of these would be on there. Because either the solo isn't that technically complex, the song is a bit on the obscure side of things, or the placement of the guitar solo within the song makes it a bit more obscure or easy to overlook. So, with that explanation out of the way, the only other thing I have to say before we really get started with this is the usual rules of A, only one entry per band, B, it's gotta be from my own music collection because I can't consider everything. Trust me, there would be a bunch of other things that I would possibly include in a list like this. I wouldn't even be able to narrow it down to 10, I would think, if I had all music from everywhere to try and consider. So, now that I've said my piece on all that, kind of introduced the video as much as I can, here we go. Here are my top 10 overlooked guitar solos. Alright, so kicking things off, I am going with the song Rapture from The Last Remark. Now, the vast majority of people out there probably would not know of this band. And that's the reason this guitar solo makes it on the list, really. The Last Remark is actually a band that I have some personal connections with, so to speak. When I heard that they were releasing an album, I'm like, heck yeah, sign me up, how do I get it? So anyway, on to the actual, guitar solo itself. I mean, it's a good guitar solo. It's not like the most ridiculously complex one out there, but it's a pretty darn good guitar solo. So, yeah, again, mostly because of how obscure this is. Like, if this solo would have been done by, a bigger name in the industry, it would not be on this list. But anyway, enough babbling on. So those are my thoughts on this particular guitar solo from the Last Remarks song Rapture. Alright, I'm mixing up the honorable mention format a little bit here. I'm hopping in to honorable mention number 3 right now, coming from Skillet's song, The Resistance. Now, Skillet is not an obscure band, but, this is not one of their, solos that was released on the album. In fact, this is also the very last track on the album, and there's somewhat of a fake-out ending prior to this. Like, there's a whole... You can measure out a good couple of beats in between a particular note being played and then it comes back in with some drums and, basically an instrumental ending culminating in this guitar solo. So it's somewhat easy to miss because of it being on the last track of the album after a fake out ending. If somebody thinks it's over, before the fake out kind of kicks back in, then they're going to miss this entirely. Okay, so at number 9, I have a solo from the song Orion by Metallica. Now, I hesitate a little bit to say anything from Metallica is obscure, but this is an entirely instrumental track, which a lot of people will just brush off and not really listen to because of that. This is also just one solo out of multiple within the song, so it could be overlooked for that reason. But I'm focusing specifically on what I think might be the first guitar solo. It's early on in the track. The song's like nearly 9 minutes long, and this comes in at the 3-minute mark-ish. So, yeah, even at that. And of course, it's Metallica. They're gonna have decent guitar solos. At number 8, we've got 1,000 Faces from Creed. And the solo right near the end of the song on this one, the fact that it comes right near the end of the song, it's not the typical guitar solo placement, so it could throw you off a little bit. Also, this comes from their album that they kind of did a reunion thing almost. They had split up for a while and then came back together and did this album. And, a lot of people weren't even aware of the fact that Creed got back together and did another album. I was just talking to one of my friends about this, a few weeks ago. But, yeah. Also, again, I think it can just be assumed that I think the solo is good if I'm putting it on this list. But especially, there's one part of this that gets pretty fast, and that, shows a little more skill, for lack of a better way to put it. So, another reason why this particular solo makes it on the list. Alright, so at number 7, I'm taking something from the song Sidewinder by Avenged Sevenfold. Now, again, this solo comes in at the end of the song. Not your stereotypical guitar solo placement. Also, it's done on an acoustic guitar. It's not electric. So most people aren't going to think too hard about, a guitar solo being really high quality or top tier or whatever if it's not on an electric guitar. But, I mean, if you were to take the sound of this and translate it to an electric guitar, I bet you so many people would just be absolutely blown away by this. but it's on an acoustic guitar, which makes it a little more, I don't know, makes it a little easier to overlook when, thinking about really good guitar solos. Alright, so at number 6, I'm actually going to use a solo from the song Haunted by Evanescence. And, I mean, Evanescence is certainly no obscure band or anything like that. And this is probably from one of their most popular albums. I mean, their first one, to the best of my knowledge, is overall the most popular. They're still doing things, so maybe that has changed since then, but, I mean, like, after their first album, they seemed to kind of, have a dip in popularity. But anyway, I digress. In regards to the solo itself, this is actually almost more so what I had in mind, or at least the type of guitar solo I had in mind when starting to make this list. It's a good guitar solo, but not necessarily because it's so technically complex. At least in this case, it just, feeds into the emotion of the song. And that's really more than anything else what makes this a good guitar solo. All right, hitting you with honorable mention number 2 here. This is super duper obscure in all likelihood. This is basically from Disturbed pre-David Draymond. So they weren't even called Disturbed then. They were called Brawl. And so pure obscurity gets it at least a mention here. And it's not a terrible solo, but anyway, yeah, so the song Circles, or this solo from the song Circles by what at the time was called Brawl, might be a little something to look into. Anyway, again, super duper obscure. Probably not going to see it on most people's, top tier guitar solo lists. Alright, at number 5, I'm going to hit you up with, again, not exactly a solo that's going to blow you away, but In Pieces from Linkin Park. This is actually the guitar solo that kind of made me want to do this list to begin with. It's just, it's not like it's got a whole bunch of really complex technical stuff going on with it. It doesn't even have a whole lot of, variety of techniques within it. But it's just pure, unadulterated smoothness. At least in my opinion. This also makes me want to air guitar along. This is my personal confession. I don't know how many times I have been, listening to this song, whenever throughout the day, usually in the morning as I'm kind of trying to wake myself up. It gets to this solo, and I'll just, start doing these kind of wavy hand motion things like I know how to freaking do a guitar solo. I don't. but it makes me want to try anyway. Alright, at number 4, I've got a solo from Nickelback's song Next Go Round, which I know the internet loves to hate on Nickelback. I don't know why. Maybe I do. If the last solo from Linkin Park was pure smoothness, this is like smoothness, but fast. And I also like how it kind of ramps up with the, more sustained notes before it gets to the fast part. So anyway, yeah. Again, I mean, this one's a little more technically complex as well, maybe, or at least it gives off that vibe from the way it sounds and how fast it is. But yeah. Again, probably not going to see it on too many people's top 10 lists, just because the internet loves to hate on Nickelback. There really isn't too much else to it. Okay, so what you just heard was the main sort of guitar solo from Thousand Foot Crutch's song Hand Grenade. However, this is not really the full extent of the guitar solo. It sort of blends into the background, or like it fades into the background as the chorus then kicks back in. But once you get later into the chorus, it's like the solo kind of, becomes a little more apparent again. And, I think really that was just about all the same solo going through it. But at the part where it sort of calmed down and wasn't so fast and chaotic and stuff, it kind of blended into the background and was easy to miss. So really the part that I would emphasize is right around 3:55 mark in the song, where it starts to kick back in again. The chorus is still there, though, so it's a bit easier to miss the fact that, oh, hey, there's more epic guitar stuff going on. What? Alright, at number 2 on the list, I've got a solo from Hunter's Season by Camelot. Camelot, first off, is a progressive metal band, which it's very sort of a niche thing, progressive metal is. There aren't a whole lot of people that are really into progressive metal. So it could be overlooked by a lot of people just for that reason. But dang, that solo! Like, did you hear all the different stuff that's going on with it? There's a lot going on with this guitar solo. And even, like, various techniques and skills used within the solo. And I've grown an appreciation for variety within guitar solos because it shows, like, all in one package that the guitarist is, you know, capable not only of doing one fancy sounding thing, but multiple fancy sounding things. Okay, so before I get to my official number one on this list, I got one more honorable mention for you. And I'm putting in Join the Ranks by Rise Against. This is from one of their earlier albums. This may even be their earliest album. If not the earliest, one of the earliest albums from them. This song is also a really short song, which most people don't think to look in for, you know, top-tier guitar solos. The solo is also, like, right at the end of the song. But, you know, it's still, like, a fast... It's still a solo that, you know, shows a fair amount of skill in the speed of it and, you know, the different things that happen. There sounds like there's definitely some hammer-ons of some kind or something like that going on in there. But anyway, let me get to my actual number one pick here. Okay, so, last and greatest? Most people say last but not least. But anyway, this is the opposite of that. At number one, I have a solo from the song Misled by... The album artist just says James Labrie, who is the lead singer of Dream Theater, probably one of the best known progressive metal bands out there, but still, it's progressive metal. I've already talked about how that's kind of a niche genre, but it's the singer's solo project. Most people don't even think that much about the singer of a prog metal band. Never mind any, like, solo work that they do. But, anyway, so that's where this song comes from, and the solo quality, again, harkens back to number two, you know, in terms of the various types of skills and things that are used within the solo to give it a nice variety of sound, and it's just like the whole package, pretty much. It was real tight between 1 and 2 on this list, but ultimately I gave number one to this just because, again, coming from the solo project of a progressive metal band's lead singer. So, like, this isn't even the main band that he's known for doing stuff with. That would be Dream Theater. This is not that. So, anyway, yeah. Enough explanations. That does it for my list. So, I'm sure there are some, you know, guitar solos that I could have included in this list. Were there more music in my collection? So, if you have guitar solos that you really like that maybe are somewhat more on the obscure side of things, leave a comment down below with your thoughts on that. Or even just other video ideas or other thoughts you have for me. But as always, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with others if you want them to see. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. Of course, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to get updates when I post new videos. That way you'll be able to see which videos I'm putting out there and know when I might release another video like this. These ones are not super common for me, so, you know, all the more reason to get a notification for when it would come out. Anyway, yeah, I think that about does it. So, hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.